My name is Petra Velzeboer, and I'm on a mission to help you lead mentally healthy lives. That's my mission today. As well as a psychotherapist with a master's degree in psychodynamics of human development, I'm also a business owner, a mother, and somebody that has had to teach myself the hard way how to lead a mentally healthy life. So today I'm going to share 3 tools with you. Really simple tools that I've seen work in so many of the clients that I've worked with who have come to me with anxiety and depressive type symptoms, as well as they've supported me to vastly change the trajectory of my life. Now, before I go deeper into those, let's talk about the global crisis. So before the health pandemic, the World Health Organization already identified that depression was the leading cause of disability worldwide, with one person taking their life every 40 seconds. So I want to talk about how these global pandemics affect each of us personally. Because what we tend to do is we tend to find all the reasons for why it's too hard or we shouldn't live our fullest life. But I believe the rise in anxiety and depression symptoms are simply because we've been living a half-life for too long. We've been avoiding who we really are and playing up to all the shoulds of who we think we should be in order to survive and stay safe. So that's what I want to talk to you about. And let me start by telling you a little bit of my story and what's gotten me to these conclusions. Now, I know I said I'm a mother, a business owner, and I have a mission to help you lead mentally healthier lives. But before all of that, I was also raised in a religious cult. So yes, I was. And here's my beautiful blended family, my little sibling group. I'm sure you can spot me and pick me out of the lineup there. But besides sort of heavy indoctrination, traveling, we didn't go to school. I lost count of how many times that we moved. It really an alternative upbringing. But the impact on me long term was actually sort of led me into depressive states, deep anxiety. I've developed post-traumatic stress disorder and essentially was suicidal many times. Oh, and I was also like a raging alcoholic for many years. And this would be the beginning of a long trajectory of really challenging times where I faced death in the face in a way. But this is going to sound weird. I actually think that I was lucky. I think I was lucky to stare into that abyss because so many of you never get that chance. Now, I know that sounds weird, but I got to wake up. I got the slap on the face and the punch in the gut that said, hey, you have one precious life. And if you don't switch it up and take responsibility for the things that you can do, well, then this will continue to be your life. So that's where some of that led me. I found that the big, nasty monster that affects our life actually isn't the big stuff that I just talked about. It is, in fact, a lot more sneaky, subtle, and insidious. And it is called, in my opinion, settling for mediocrity. It's that middle ground, that little central space. Now that's where the danger really lies. And I want to take you on a journey for how you identify and move through so you can truly be mentally healthy and fulfilled. But let me ask you a couple of questions first. Have you ever felt like life isn't too bad? You're like, oh, it's not too bad. I should be grateful. But it really isn't that good either. Have you ever told yourself you should be grateful? Now, I hear this all the time at the moment for your job, your house, your relationship, but not because gratitude doesn't have a science and it's not a great thing. It is. But often we can focus on being grateful for these things as a way of avoiding the work that it might take to change things. And finally, here's one more question. Have you ever talked to a friend in order to reinforce the story that you tell yourself about the limited choices that you have? You ever done that? Now, I have done all of these things, literally all of them. I've done all of these things. So let me just take you to where my story left me. I wasn't brave enough to leave. I wasn't brave enough. I knew it. I had something inside me that said, well, but I didn't have an education. I didn't have people to go to look out for me. I wasn't brave enough to leave. What I did instead was I led a double life. So on the one hand, I actually rose up in the ranks of the cult and became a bit of a leader and people knew about me. And on the other hand, I had a secret, sordid life of hedonism, drugs, alcohol, and anything to do to escape. Now, at 22, I fell pregnant. I was dating somebody outside of the community, which you weren't supposed to do. I fell pregnant and I moved to London to be with him. And this was the first time that I'd left that sort of community belief system, all the things that were just my norm and my familiarity, right? And so what I stepped into was what I thought was a normal life. So I worked really hard to fit in and be as normal as possible. So my boyfriend would go to work, we had a nice flat, we had a car, and I would sit there with my son and in these four walls of complete emptiness and sit with myself probably for the first time. Now, the loneliness that I experienced, the depression, the overwhelm at finally doing that was almost too much. And it ended up descending me into 6 years and another child, so 2 kids, and 6 years going deeper and deeper into alcohol addiction, despair, risky behaviors. I would drive and black out. I put my kids in risky behaviors, a whole host of things that just kind of careened me into my own abyss of rock bottom. And then something happened 6 years later. So this is a long stretch of time, right? To be this unhappy and to be, talking to people about your victim story so that they can reinforce that belief system of who you are. And I woke up one day, and I don't know why this happened this day and it hadn't happened before, but I was at the end and I was done. I was finished. And I realized then that I had this choice, this little seed of an idea sort of dripped into my mind, and it grew over the sort of next following days. And that little idea was, what if I postponed taking my life for 1 year? 1 year I would postpone taking my life. Don't ask me why it was a year, it wasn't 6 months, anything else. But what happened was I determined that in that year, I had nothing left to lose. I had 2 choices in my mind: to end everything or to experiment in this way. So I had a choice. And in that year, I determined to experiment and test all of those well-being tools, everything that was out there, in order to figure out if there was a way, even with my past, to live the life that I wanted. That was the challenge. Now, that year came and went, and life wasn't perfect. I looked back and I was like, holy shit, that year's come and gone. Life wasn't perfect, but I had learned one thing. Now, I learned that I can teach myself to be mentally healthy, happy, and fulfilled. And today I want to tell you what some of those ways are that we can teach ourselves. But now the scariest part of the story actually comes next. Okay, remember that thing I said about mediocrity and that's actually where the real sort of monster is? That's what happened next. Life got good. Life got good. I got sober. I got an education. I got a job. I got married. My kids were safe. We lived in a house. Life was good. But there was something inside me. There was that little voice. There was that little bit of anxiety, that frustration, something inside me that I couldn't numb anymore or turn the volume down through alcohol and all the rest of it. And I knew that something had to change and that this couldn't be it. I didn't come this far and work this hard to get to this place just to be safe and not actually thrive in some sort of way. I didn't know what it was. So in 2016, I sat my husband down and I told him I had to leave. And I told him I didn't know why, and that I knew it would be hard, and that I didn't know if I was just addicted to struggle, if that's what was happening. But I knew within me that if I didn't change something then, even then, that because I was lucky enough to have experienced that rock bottom moment, well, I could slide into that. So I remember the first night in my London flat, just crying and crying because I was terrified. I was terrified, but I knew that if I didn't listen, that I would descend back into some of that darkness. Now, life has grown since then, and I want to get to the 3 tools, so bear with me. Life has grown since then in massive ways. And I want to talk to you about some of the clients that I've worked with who have also moved into creating a mentally healthier life using the tools. So let me start with Julie. Now, Julie came to me about 35 years old, On the surface, like mine, her life was good. She had a great flat, she had a job, she had a boyfriend, she had all these things. But she came to me because of anxiety, deep-seated, anxious, low-level, constant anxiety, not being able to sleep, questioning everything, and saying all these things about who she should be. Now, she had expectations of where her life should be. And so rather than focus in on the anxiety symptoms, I actually focused in on some other questions, which I hope you'll apply to you as well. So here's a couple versions of it. When was the last time you felt fully alive? Question one. Are you fulfilled in your work and your relationships? So fulfillment, not achievement. And finally, questions like, what do you truly want? So these are the types of things I asked Julie. What we discovered was that what she really wanted was to be a writer, but she had squashed this down so far for so long because parents or whoever told her this wasn't a viable opportunity, and it wasn't sort of a career that would, keep her safe, essentially. So as she began to experiment and connect with creativity, so she signed up to sort of a course, started talking to people about the book idea, her anxiety symptoms reduced. And we hadn't even focused on those symptoms. We had just focused on dialing up the answers to some of these questions. Steve, another client, just to give you a flavor. Steve came to me deeply depressed. Now, he was in a cycle of, again, on the surface, great job title, super good job title, doing, on the surface, great social life, a whole host of things. But he came to me depressed, lonely, longing for intimacy and connection. This was essentially what he was longing for. But he was stuck in the cycle of swiping for the next sort of pretty thing on his arm. And as soon as it got a bit close to intimacy, he would leave it, and the depressed cycle would continue, fueled by partying, alcohol, and a sort of recreational drug use and the rest of it. This was his life, which on the outside looked pretty cool, but on the inside was deeply empty. For him, we started exploring what he truly wanted. And what would it be like to do a job that felt meaningful instead of just having the flashy title? What would it be like to experiment with connecting with somebody on a deeper level? And as he sort of dialed up the fact that he actually wanted to travel for 3 months out of the year and sort of disrupt the pattern of shoulds that he was expected to do, his depression symptoms began to reduce as well. So this brings me to the 3 tools. Are you ready? The 3 tools that sort of exemplify the way myself and the clients, things that we've practically done that I want you to be able to practically do off the back of this talk in order to live the life that you truly want. Number 1, practice bravery every day. Now, people think that bravery is the big stuff. It's climbing the mountain, it's getting the promotion, it's talking on stage, all the big things that people equate bravery to. But bravery is a practice that we can utilize every single day in order to get better at it. It's a skill that we can develop. So bravery can be just those small things. Now, for Julie, bravery was actually signing up to that writer's course. It was actually talking to people about her book idea, and it was showing up 3 times a week at a blank page. That was bravery and where it started for Julie. For Steve, bravery started with the office, like us talking about what that might look like. But really it came in him taking off the party bravado mask and connecting to another male friend and telling him he was lonely and asking him how he truly felt. It was going beneath the surface of the everyday conversation. Skill number 2, tool number 2, dare to dream. Now, in a world of polarization, noise, consumerism, the always-on culture, we have lost the magic of dreaming. So that place where you can just imagine the possibilities. Now, for me, but remember, I didn't go to school, and then I did a master's degree at night while working full-time with 2 kids. That was hard. It was hard. But it started with the seed of dreaming. Now, the amount of times that I would picture myself walking across that stage, getting that degree from the crusty old white man, what I would wear, the shoes, how I would feel, the sense of achievement, the whole thing. And then I would wake up at 3 a.m. to get some study in before my kids woke up, and then I had to go to work. But I imagined it first. And finally, experiment. Tool number 3, experiment. Now, this is my favorite one because essentially it means that it isn't a one-size-fits-all. We don't all need to be going down a particular path. You don't need to listen to everyone's advice. You don't even need to listen to my advice. But what you can do is try it on for size and see how it fits for you. Now, I can't look into your soul and see what are the things that light you up and make you excited to be alive. Only you know what gives you energy versus what takes it away. So experimenting is fun and really actually saved my life, because if I had to fit into one box of how mental health looked and a fulfilled life looked, well, it might not have worked for me and I might not be here today. Now, Steve experimented by just exploring what it would look like to have meaningful work and to travel for 3 months out of the year. Julie experimented by thinking, well, how do I say no? What kind of space do I create? And then what are the resources and tools that I can use to create habits around writing and having a best practice? So we're almost coming to the end of this talk, and allow me to recap the 3 things that can radically change the trajectory of your life and help you be mentally healthier, more fulfilled, and happy. 3 things. Number 1, practice bravery every single day. Remember, small things have a stacking effect and become big things over time. Number 2, dare to dream. Create space and time to listen to the voice inside you rather than all the noise that is out there. And finally, my all-time favorite, number 3, experiment. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. You get to create and listen and reflect on all the data in your life in order to carve out the life that you want. So before I leave, I want to leave you with a challenge. We're coming to the end of our talk. Thank you so much for riding the wave with me this whole time. And my challenge to you is essentially to help you put this into practice. And here it is. Are you willing to do one brave act? And ideally, you would do it today, immediately after you sign off. Are you willing to do one brave act? Now, this can be small. It can be as little as putting down the drink, putting down the remote, having a connected, deep, and open, vulnerable conversation with somebody, anything to disrupt your routine and connect with somebody on a heart level and test out the things that bring you alive and make you live the life you want. So what's it to be? Are you willing to do one small brave act?